Hey everyone, this is Carter. Welcome to this episode of Making It Up, the show where I talk to writers of all sorts and we have a lovely conversation and then make up a cool story at the end. And today I had the honor and privilege of talking to Gabrielle St George, whose new book, How to Murder a Marriage, The Ex-Whisperer Files, was recently released. And Gabrielle was very interesting and very cool to talk to. She has a varied background. We talked a little bit about kind of a rough childhood that she had, and her, how that kind of led to her need to run free with her imagination, which manifested itself in all sorts of different creative outlets, painting and writing and just working with her hands, cooking. And she, first went to school for dance and then went to film school and actually was in the film industry, kind of on the writing side of the film industry for quite some time before stopping that so she could raise her children. And we talked a lot about just kind of the joy of being a parent and being present for your children. And she had some great insights and gratitude regarding that. But she's always been interested in writing, and she kind of came up with this pretty interesting idea for a mystery book. So it's a mystery centered on kind of an advice columnist. And concurrent with the release of her mystery book are 3 actual books written from the perspective of the primary character in the mystery. So actually 3 advice books. So they're all being released at the same time. So I thought that was very creative. But we had a wonderful conversation, and it was good to get to know her a little bit more. And I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Gabrielle St George. There we go.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, thank you.
What a lovely place you have there.
Yeah, I'm out on a farm.
Where?
Yeah. So I'm in Canada.
Okay.
And I'm about 3 hours north of Toronto. I just moved here in the winter, like 7 months ago. But it's right along Lake Huron. It's a little town on the shores of the inland ocean. So it's really gorgeous. And I've always had this thing about the Aurora Borealis, and I've traveled a lot, but haven't done like Iceland. And man, it's here like 8 months of the year, every night, like more spectacular than Scandinavia. It's just like insane.
All right. I need to get notes from you because so that's kind of our next trip. My partner and I, she wanted to do like an adventure trip. So I'm like, we've never seen the Aurora Borealis. So we were looking at Scandinavia, and I knew obviously Canada, but I didn't know it was that spectacular or that like accessible. So maybe that's the better. We'll all come up to your farm.
Even like what I've read about like going to Iceland and that for it, you have to book 2 weeks trip because you can be like, staying in the igloo and that, the ice hotels and all that kind of stuff. And you still can go 2 weeks and not get them, like
that'd
you
be
have
so
to
frustrating.
Yeah, right. I know on Vancouver Island, there's like the Wickaninnish Inn, this beautiful place on the ocean. It's the furthest west point in North America. And they do like storm watching. Like everyone goes, like their high season there is like December to March because it's storm watching in the sky and all the rooms are just glass. And a friend went there for like a week and no storms. And she went in March. So, you have to give yourself enough time to try and hit it, right?
So what was the impetus to move out to the farm?
I was bringing my kids here for summer holidays, like would rent a cottage, since the time they were little. And it's just like really, really beautiful. And it was really just an impulsive thing, my middle name. And after being in like where I was, which was just outside of Toronto, actually on a farm for the last like 15 years there, but actually 20 years. But I don't know, I just like when I was here, like my heart would hurt when I wasn't here. It's just so beautiful. Yeah.
Is it lonely? Is it real quiet? Are there neighbors?
I have cows. No, I mean, So I'm like 10 minutes outside of town. So
Okay.
far, far, far. Oh my God, 10 minutes. I'm not going all the way to town for,
Right. Right.
no, it's amazing. Like someone had told me, oh, they roll up the sidewalks there in the winter. And then someone else who lived here had said, man, you can't get a parking spot. It's kind of a bit of a posh area. Like the wealthy people from Toronto have always summered here. So they
Okay.
use that. But yeah, yeah. But
Okay.
I'm a farmer out here.
So you were born and raised in Canada?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Like
kind of in the Toronto area.
yeah, suburbs
Yeah.
outside. But then the last 30 years I've lived in the like one farm or another, like in the country. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And
And I have a place on the water here, but like land that I'm going to build on. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And I was just going to say congratulations on the upcoming release. That's it's an exciting time because this will come out after the book is out, but I know you're probably a few weeks out from the release.
Yeah, November 9th,
Yeah.
2 weeks.
So
Yeah.
that's an exciting time. Are you kind of at the point where you're just like, you know, it's out of my control, whatever happens, happens? Or are you frantically working the PR side and, doing events and things like that?
I'm surprisingly calm.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get there and then it just kind of happened anyway. So I'm thankful about that. It's just like whatever happens, happens, and lots of good stuff keeps happening. I've been approached already by a couple of production companies in LA who are interested and just had a big meeting and they're like really want to move forward. And so being chill is working for me.
Well, now you have a background in screenwriting, right?
Yeah.
I know you have a lot of credit. So as you're growing up, where, what was that inflection point where, or was there one where all of a sudden you're like, I want to storytell, or did that not happen till later?
I think it was always there. I mean, I think even I remember in grade 2 kind of being enamored with storytelling and books and things. Um, and I went to film school. I owned a dance school and as a dancer. I'm also an artist. I paint really large abstract paintings and and I design and build houses. I love to create. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really my thing. So it's all of those things. But writing was always there. I had a really tumultuous childhood. You know, some good things, some nice things, but lots of anguish. So
Huh.
I always needed to escape, I think. I spent a lot of time on my own. Yeah.
Did you have siblings growing up?
I have one sibling who's 7 years older, and we don't speak. Like for the
Oh,
last 10 years or so, we don't speak at all. My dad was killed in a car crash when I was like 20, and my mom is still alive, but she's always had a lot of mental illness, and particularly so now. And I'm
so you were just saying that you had a tumultuous childhood and that you were kind of raised by um, a mom with mental health issues, and that was kind of a driving force behind you, I guess, wanting to escape a little bit into yourself.
yeah, I mean, literally a bipolar mom who's non-medicated and me with her alone a lot. So yeah, the my coping mechanism, I would say, was to escape into my imagination, which made it really strong. You know, there's still like I had really beautiful grandparents, and I never felt unloved. It wasn't like that, but
Yeah.
just like if people can't care for you, they can't care for you.
Was she diagnosed bipolar and actually chose not to medicate, or was it never
No,
diagnosed?
I mean, kind of think about like this. It's sad, really, but suburbia in the 60s, all these housewives with no jobs, no cars, husbands gone to work and other places. And I mean, they didn't get therapy. They made a martini, right?
Yeah.
The only time you would go see a head doctor is if your husband was trying to get you committed. Like it just
Right.
was a different time. So, but now, yeah, she suffers from a lot of those things now, and
Wow.
in her advanced age, they do what they can with drugs. So yeah.
And is that, that's always scary as a child, right? For a number of reasons, but also because a lot of that's genetic. Is that always is that a concern for you?
Uh, no, I mean, about my sister, I would say,
Yeah.
does have similar things. I absolutely don't, thank goodness. Um, and even my biggest fantasy as a child was to be called in for dinner. You know,
Hmm.
everyone play outside, and you were supposed to go home when the street lights came on. Not me, I could stay there all night, didn't matter. But I wanted someone, be like, Janie, come in for dinner. Johnny, come in for dinner. And I just like, please, 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 please call me in for dinner. It never happened.
Hmm.
But so for me, raising my own kids, it was so important to me. Like, I made a beautiful meal. We sat down together, and I'd often go on for 2 or 3 hours talking about everything and all that. So I think some of us follow in the footsteps, and some of us, work hard to go in the opposite direction.
Yeah, for
From what we
sure. I
brought
mean,
with.
and then culturally, like you said, everything changes anyway. It's not the same culture as it was
Mhm.
back then and the same structure. But
Yeah,
yeah, I can see you wanting to, to recognize what you didn't maybe get as a kid, and then wanting to make sure you didn't do that yourself. And yeah, I feel the same
yeah,
way, in raising my kids. And I had a great childhood, but there were certainly, you know, there were certainly things that I wanted to do different, or I wanted to be maybe, as present as possible for my kids. So it's nice to be able to do that as well. And
yeah,
just going back, it was interesting what you said about creating, because I was just having this conversation with somebody about writing, and I feel like I'm the same way. Like I don't like to be still. I have to always be doing something, but I love doing a lot of other things aside from writing. But I love physically creating. I love, you know, house projects, or, working with my hands. And it's just, and I think there's something about writers, or the creative type, that is just that literally, that we just have to be, making something come alive, however that manifests itself. And it seems that that's certainly the case with you.
yeah. And I so appreciate. I mean, our metal workers, like
Hmm.
everyone who creates stuff, or even gardeners and chefs, like it's just all the best. I love I like to cook and garden and all those things
Yep.
too.
Yeah. Working with your hands one way or another. And
Yeah.
then, so you went to film school, and what was the intention there?
So first I went to university for dance, and then I left university then, actually, because I left because I was being stalked, and
Oh my God.
um, there wasn't even a word for it then. There wasn't a word, and there was no one to tell or to explain that this guy really liked me and would be waiting outside of every classroom door at the end of every
Another
class and be
student.
in the parking lot every night. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but literally there wasn't a word for it then. But anyway, opened my dance school, and then it fulfilled me in lots of ways creatively, but not intellectually. So back to uni for film. And um and then I got a fellowship. I didn't finish it. I didn't finish my film degree. I was like halfway through, and I was given a fellowship for like the summer months with, it was CBS, doing shows with our national network up here, CTV. And then when summer ended, they offered me a full-time position, which is like amazing.
Hmm.
But I still was going to try to juggle uni with it. And like the film history class was like, if you miss two classes, it's an automatic fail. So I literally missed the first two classes because there were production meetings for the show. So I
Oh,
just couldn't do it all. Just couldn't do it. And
yeah.
it was fine. It didn't hurt me to not do it. But yeah, so then film, and worked in film until I had my kids. And then I had 4 kids in 5 years, and knew the kind of mom I wanted to be. And that was like super mom, hands on, 24 hours a day.
Right.
And had, the best time. So much fun doing that. And my kids and I are still super close. They all live abroad. But we
Oh,
talk every day, and super, super close. Yeah. Yeah.
so in the time that you were in film,
Yeah.
in what capacity were you kind of, you were doing mostly writing?
Yeah, I was a story editor and then also wrote screenplays. And then
Okay.
wrote some feature scripts that were optioned in LA and stuff, but yeah, didn't get made, which is typical, but yeah.
Which is
Yeah,
typical.
but I
Yeah.
loved it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was like 80 hours a week for
Yeah.
sure. And then, you get your couple of months off for hiatus. But I literally, it's like the days never ran too long for me and the weeks never ran too long. I loved it, loved it, loved it. But couldn't do a family with the 80-hour week positions.
Right.
And the people I worked with who did have families were males who had a wife who
Yeah.
was
Right.
pulling up the rear end. Yeah.
Right. You have a significant other who's pitching in and
That's how it works. That's how you make it work. Yeah.
yeah, but it's still hard because, even if you have that, you're still not there. And that's tough because you end up,
Yeah.
looking back later saying like, I mean, one of I love, I mean, my kids are older now. My daughter just started college and my son's a sophomore in high
Oh,
school, but he's getting his license in just a couple months. And
oh
in
yeah.
the meantime, I'm like, I love picking you up from school because it's like, I enjoy this time we have to, because in a couple months, you're going to be driving yourself. And that, then if there's that sense of like kind of almost feeling like you're not so needed, it's just it's kind of a haunting feeling.
I know. And just that ending. And it wasn't a school, the school pickup was amazing to me because as soon as they as soon as they got in the car, it was just like a blurting out of everything that happened.
Right.
But then
Right.
like by the time you got home, or even if like dad gets home an hour later, they said it all. How's your day? Okay.
Right.
They're not
Right.
interested in repeating it, right? But
Right.
to be there to like hear it, like, yeah, I appreciated all those things. Super fun. Super loved every minute of having kids at home. Yeah.
And as you were raising them, were you missing the creative process of screenwriting and editing, or did you always feel kind of pulled back like I want to keep writing?
I mean, I did keep writing, when I had 2 kids, 3 kids, and then there was 4 kids under 5 years old. It was like, no.
That sounds so brutal.
But yeah, it was actually just like literally so fun. I don't even know. I was just so like friggin' lucky. I have like the worst dogs in the world, but like the best kids. And it was just so fun and great. But I don't think well, I think to be like, if I'm being like brutally honest,
Be
what would
brutally
get
honest.
me is that yeah, I usually am. Well, I would see my colleagues excelling, get like, rising up through the ranks, and now they're showrunners and now they're executive producers. And I'm like, I'm changing diapers, but I still would not change a thing.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, literally like envy would have been a thing,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
if someone, and I would get the call sometime, say within the first like 8 years before they forgot you totally. And my agent called me one time and there's this showrunner position and I'm like, oh, my kids. And he's like, you can hire 3 fucking nannies, just like take it. But that wasn't the path. So no regrets there at all.
Yeah. Well, and as you get older, it's easier to even have that appreciation more and more of you realizing of like, life is about the togetherness and the family. And, you perhaps you would have been a lot more successful in that industry if you'd stayed in it, but who knows? I mean, and your point is well taken about envy, because that's unavoidable almost kind of anywhere. I mean, because you'll look at, I'll look at other writers and be like, wow, how did they hit it so big? I'm doing the exact same stuff and maybe they are at these huge, and
Yeah.
you have to kind of extract yourself from that and almost appreciate that, like, well, people are probably saying that about me to a certain extent. And to
Yeah.
put things in
And
perspective.
so many parents I know are like envious of my relationship with my kids and my kids' relationships with each other.
Right.
It's just
Right.
like a beautiful, just like cultivated a beautiful family culture. And it blows my mind. Again, like I said, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Yeah. Yeah. But
Right.
I mean, now, and now and then for those years, I painted a lot and stuff, but you can do that in your off time, right? When you're
Right.
not changing diapers and everything. But
Right.
now, now I can go, I have no excuses. Now it's full on, and that's what I'm doing.
So, you didn't start, like, when you got into books, you didn't start with fiction, correct?
Well, I love mysteries and thrillers, and particularly black comedies is my dark comedies is
Sure.
my favorite thing.
Sure.
So when I decided I was going to write a book, I was going to write this mystery that I wrote. But because the main character is a relationship advice, guru, um, I just had thought of the idea of, and she was like a best-selling like relationship advice author. So I just decided to write a couple of those books. They're written by her, like she writes them. So I just like actually wrote those books. And then I wrote the mystery novel that centers around the author of those books. So those three of those books are coming out on November 9th with this first mystery novel from the same publisher. And then next year, book 2 in the mystery series and book 4 in the nonfiction Gal Guides, they're called. And then the following year, book 3 in the mystery series and book 5 in the Gal Guides. Yeah.
So
So
that
they're connected.
and those are two. It's funny because those are totally, obviously they're very related, because she writes these books, but then you're writing those books, and
Yeah.
that's got to be a different process, obviously, between writing the actual mystery, and because there's a whole lot different mindset and voice that you're doing with that than writing her advice books. Did you write them concurrently or one after the other?
I did like with the advice books, the nonfiction. I did one, and then I did the next one, and then I wrote the mystery, and then I wrote the third advice book.
Okay.
Yeah. So the advice books are, just lots of research and stuff, and it's just they're really. I mean, I'm not a psychologist. It's just kind of like having a coffee with your best gal pal,
Right.
and as all my friends and I have always done, it's like really you're like reminding your friend of what they already know, um supporting them, and there's a lot of confirmation. Usually we know what we should and shouldn't be doing, or
Sure.
where we're messing up, or what we're allowing and disallowing that's right or wrong. And it's just like when you call a friend, usually they tell you exactly what you already know, and that's kind of what it is. And it's like they're a bit unique, like a lot of kind of true confession. I'm a really open, honest person. I really value that. um uh just the realness of it all. So, and I think that's in the mystery novel. Kind of like all the reviewers so far mention that the main character is just so real and honest. So like a lot of them just like, wow, how it's just, I loved her honesty. And I guess that's the me part.
And um, when you're writing the advice books, were you getting into her voice? Do you find it to be very similar to your voice, or did you try to establish kind of a whole other persona?
uh my kids say she is me. I say she's a version of me. They may be right. um I think she's me but better. I want to be her when I grow up.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of the aspiration aspect in there.
Mm,
And
yeah.
what was your process like writing the actual mystery element of it? And you know, how many rewrites did you go through? Because mysteries, if you're writing a straight up mystery, that's, there are some, I guess, kind of rules involved with that, but also just, you know, knowing, do you know what the mystery is the whole time, or are you outlining, or is it just kind
Yeah,
of coming to you?
as a screener, my background is to outline,
True. Yeah.
excessively.
Right. That's true.
So that's like that's what's comfortable for me. And I was just kind of surprised. Like, I think it's hard to recall now. I think it did go in the direction that I was expecting it to go. And I'm a super fast writer,
Mhm.
but I can spend months like staring at clouds,
Right.
thinking of the story. And then when I write, it's almost like typing, it's pretty quick. But this, I think the characters plural, but mainly the main character kind of just took over, which I was like, really? I was like surprised by that.
Hmm.
And I to some degree, I just did let that happen and was just kind of the stenographer. And that was like really just super fascinating for me. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, that is true. And sometimes they have, because I don't outline. I just write from the seat of my pants, and that's the only
Do you
way I
know
know.
your ending though? Do you know your
No,
ending?
I don't know anything.
No. Wow.
I
Cool,
know
cool,
that
cool.
I know I what I typically think of is an opening scene that just is weird and that fascinates me. And like, if I were watching a show and this is the opening scene, I'd want to see more. And then I kind of
Yeah.
spend the rest of the book trying to figure out what that opening scene is all about. And usually around 70 to 80% in, I have an idea. I'm like, oh, I think this is how it's going to end. But there's, obviously a ton of rewrites involved, because then I might go a certain direction and like that necessitates me going back and doing some other things. But that's how I get my joy. Like that, to me, that's exciting, not knowing. And I've tried to outline, it's just not me, who I am. But if I happen to know like the next, these things I know have to happen probably in the next 50 pages. If I know that, then the writing is like super easy. Like you said, it's just like typing, because I just, the muscle you've built and you know how to do that. To me, what takes long is just the figuring shit out part of it is like, I have no idea. But that, again, that's the joy of it to me, and everyone's different. And that's true with screenwriting. I would think that would be, you're by necessary, you have to be very structured and have to kind of have it all laid out, because you're having act 1, act 2, act 3, plot A, plot B. So it can
Well,
see
also starting with a treatment and an outline and everything, everyone has their input, all the different producers and execs and everything. So they've all you can't just surprise them with a big change in the direction, because they just won't like it, no matter, even if it's way better. They've been involved and they have expectations, and you have to get that right first and stick to that. But so I would want to ask you a question. Do you write really long then? Do you write super long and have to edit, cut back like crazy?
No, it's really weird. And it's funny, I'm actually within maybe 2 or 3 days of finishing a draft of my next novel, which has taken me way too long. But I almost always, and I don't do this by choice, but I almost always end up around anywhere between 85 and 87,000 words. And that's just my story. And then when I go back and edit, the attrition, and then I add some, then it still ends up around 85,000 words. So, I mean, I just talked to Stuart Turton, who will crop out 60,000 words out of his manuscript. And I don't know how you do that. So, cause I ended up adding as much as I subtract usually. So it's rare that I write long. I think the longest I ever wrote was 95. And then I cut out probably about 7,000 words out of that. So what about you?
Yeah, I love writing short. I love reading short. I love Elmore Leonard. I love Hemingway. I love reading short.
Yeah.
And I like writing short. I usually have to go back in and add some fat, add some description kind of thing.
But I 100% agree with you. I think lean, especially in the thriller genre, is very important. My chapters are very short. My sentences are very short. I have, I don't describe a whole lot of things. I give the audience credit for seeing it, how I try to establish a mood and a tone, but not, describe every little thing. And then when I'm editing, I try to look at, in fact, I have a tattoo on my arm that says "Kill Your Darlings." Every sentence I look at, I'm like, how can I make this sentence shorter? You're almost like distilling it, right? So whatever you're left with, the essence is more powerful than a longer sentence with kind of that's been diluted down by so many words. I mean, that's my theory, at least. So I try to, maybe it's just
I agree.
excuse for not having a huge vocabulary.
No, I agree with that too. And even as a reader, the really long, like award-worthy descriptive passages, I skim, I
100%.
skim them. It's not my
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
I agree. All that being said, I try to be very cognizant of when I think the reader needs a break from maybe an intense moment. But that can just be a couple sentences of a breather rather than this whole long setting I mean, again, this is the thriller genre. I know people want kind of a breakneck speed when they're
Yeah.
reading, and so that's important for me to try to provide that to them.
Yeah.
How many edits did you go through with the mystery? Like, do you find yourself having, you said you go back and you add things in? Did you find
Yeah.
yourself like really like, and going through the editorial letter process, was that pretty laborious, or was it not too intense?
I use my own editor, and she's wonderful, and she helps me a lot. And there's some big changes. But with the publisher's editor, it was not much at all.
Oh,
But
that's
maybe
nice.
because I had the other editor do the work. No, I was actually looking forward to like make me a better writer, like
Yeah.
give me lots of stuff there, and it kind of wasn't there. I was a bit disappointed in that. But I but the indie editor that I used first, and again with the one I'm working on now, will use. She really uh, has a lot to say and share, which I really appreciate. But then,
Yeah.
as coming from screenwriting, I'm used to working with a team too. I like that.
The collaboration, and it's critical, right? Like I mean, the editorial letter part is always, I'll get the email. I'm like, oh shit, do I want to open this now? It's going to end. But my background wasn't writing. So I came into that late. And so I had to kind of learn everything. So I'm always at a position of, I don't know, lack of confidence, I think. So when I get these letters, I read them like, this is going to be a lot of work, but you're totally right. This will totally make this story better.
Yeah.
And I'm excited
Yeah.
for it. So I think if you kind of have that viewpoint of, because I know some people who just, will fight tooth and nail with their editor, like, no, what I've written is perfect and it doesn't need to be changed. And I can't relate to that at all. Cause
No.
I'm so filled with doubt as I write. I love writing, but I completely always judging myself and feeling like it's not going to be interesting to anybody. And, that typical writer, they're
I'm
just
still blown away that anyone likes my book.
totally
And
right.
even like, I'm just like, what? And still, but the review, I was like unsure about, I was really, really scared to get my first review. And the first few reviews were really, really good.
Mhm.
And then I got like I got a 2-star review. But the first reviews were really good. And I'm like, do these people know anything at all about good writing? And then I get a 2-star review, like, does this person know anything at all about good writing? So it would really,
Right.
really quickly, I was pleasantly surprised to feel almost nothing with the reviews, because I didn't know if I would be like, you know, contemplating suicide
Right.
or like whatever. And again, I just was like, I'm pretty chill about it. And wasn't expecting that. And I'm really grateful. I
Yeah.
just like, because this past week, there's one review from a dude who said it was just like, so dialogue heavy. And then 2 days later, a review from someone saying, so description heavy. I'm
Right.
like,
Right.
it's so subjective,
Right.
so I just do my thing.
Well, yeah. And any writer who's published has gone through some degree of rejection. So it builds up after a while where you kind of just get used to it. And you also kind of know by the time it's getting to the reviews, that means it's being published by somebody who has already accepted your work. And, it, if you're just putting it out there without anyone looking at it and then waiting for reviews, that would be tough. But you're like, okay, this has already gone through these rounds of being accepted on some degree. So, it's past that muster at least. So Yeah, but I'm a believer in, like, I think it's good to look at your reviews. I know a lot of people who don't look at them all, but I'm like, that it's not going to necessarily change how you write, but you might learn. You're
Yeah, I agree.
selling a commodity, and if you
Yeah.
want to get feedback, and if everybody's saying I hate the ending, that might inform you for your next book a little bit of like, okay, maybe I should make the ending a little bit more clear or whatever. Or
Yeah, I
maybe not,
agree.
but it's good to know.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And the good reviews are still great. I mean, still, I think the imposter syndrome is real,
It's so real.
real. Oh my God. So it's still like when people like it, or especially when they love it, it's helpful, And then when people, there's just the odd one. I've only had like two that like freaks that like were like mean. And I'm just like,
Huh.
why?
Huh.
Why? Just don't bother doing it to any writers. It's just not necessary. Go away.
Like just kind of
So
attacking you personally, you mean?
just like most of them are like, oh my God, I laughed out loud so many times. I was crying, laughing. And then like someone's like, this did not even make me smile.
Right. Right.
And it's like, I don't know. Some of them, and even I have only had a teeny weeny bit, but I've seen other writers who've even like on NetGalley, like so where some people are just like so nasty, and I don't know, I don't get it. I don't get it. It's like, why even bother? Why bother? If you really didn't like the book, what'd you read the whole thing for? Like, no one cares.
Yeah, some people just want to be unhappy and let the world know about it, and that's not an insignificant part of the population, unfortunately.
Right?
So,
yeah.
But
yeah, they're everywhere, right? The haters are everywhere, so whatever.
With every book of mine that comes out, I feel like once the trades start coming in, and then I'll start paying attention to like the first Goodreads reviews, then I'll follow it for about a month, and then kind of after it's been out for a month, I just kind of let it go. I'm like, okay, I kind of know the general consensus of what people think about this book. And your reviews also, I was talking to Tess Gerritsen. She's like, some of my worst reviewed books were my biggest sellers. I mean, it just happens that way. So there's not necessarily a corollary between it, but we all strive to be better writers, and we all want to kind of understand how the public perceives our product. And so I think that's important.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Well, we're going to do a quick storytelling and then wrap up. So this is the fun part.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always have so much fun with this. So I've got three. I've got three books that I've picked out, and you're going to choose one of them, and then we're going to pick a random sentence, and then we'll use that as a springboard for a quick back and forth. It only lasts like 2 or 3 minutes, so it's not too bad. But it's always interesting to see the energy between me and whomever I'm talking to, and if you can we'll start visualizing the same thing, and it's always fun. So these are very randomly chosen books. Love and War from John Jakes, which is just a massive 1,000-page book. And then we came to the end, which is a really interesting book because it's all written in the second person. So it's like all from the we, which I've never read a book like that before, but it's great.
Oh.
And the classic Watership Down about the rabbits. So choose one of those.
Number 1.
Okay, Love and War. So so give me a number between 1 and 1,000.
411.
411. And then give me a sentence number between, let me get to 411. Between, let's say, like 1 and 5.
4.
Okay, so this is just kind of an incomplete sentence, but so I'm going to read this, and then you go wherever you want for a sentence or two. And then when you pause, I'll do a sentence or two, and we'll just see where this goes.
Okay.
Hot light of late summer, hazing the rolling country.
Okay, sentence 3. Okay, book 2. 3.
I'll tell you what, I'll find another sentence because that one was kind of garbage.
That sentence threw me. I was like,
Okay. He wore his dirtiest, seediest coat and filthy old wool hat.
I asked him where he was going dressed like that, and he refused to tell me. I watched his truck drive down the laneway and locked up all the doors tight. It wasn't a night I wanted to spend alone.
Oh. I had asked him where he was going, and he didn't reply, but I knew exactly where he was going. And I knew what state he would be in when he came home. It wouldn't be for another 3 or 4 hours. So I had to decide, do I want to stay here, locked out doors and all, or do I need to just leave before he gets back?
Halloween had always been my favorite holiday of the year, but Bill knew I couldn't handle being alone on Devil's Night. He went anyway.
In order to make a decision, I did what I always do. I poured myself 2 fingers of whiskey and threw half a cube in it. I took a swallow, felt the burn, and thought maybe I could handle being here alone tonight, but I would need more of this.
I lit the fire and got a blanket, curled up next to it. I thought I heard something tapping at the window. I know it was just that old willow tree, but it got me every time that I felt scared in the night.
The tapping continued, and after a while, it didn't bother me anymore. In fact, it became almost a comfort. What wasn't a comfort was when the tapping turned into a scratching.
I went to the window to look out and thought I saw a shadow moving across the lawn. Was it the next door neighbor's dog again? No, I saw a flash of skin. Maybe Bill had come back early after all, and maybe the night wasn't going to go the way I thought. What I know for sure is I had good reason to be afraid.
It's funny how at the height of our fear, we want to do the least logical thing there is. For me, in that moment, it was to open the door and call out Bill's name. Why I was tempted to do that, I don't know, but it's what I did.
First, I took a knife out of the block on the kitchen counter and slipped it in to the deep pocket of my cardigan. If he was going to come at me with something, I wouldn't let him get away with it, nothing.
I walked out onto the porch, and the cold wind whipped up around my face and around my neck, chilling me all the way down to my feet. I stared off into the darkness and did probably what I shouldn't have done, which was to yell his name. There's only silence in the aftermath. That's when I looked down and saw what somebody had placed for me on my porch.
It was Bill's plaid jacket, red and black, but more red on it than when he'd left. It was covered in blood.
I think we're going to call it there. That was great.
Halloween weekend.
I was about to say that was perfect. It's been a while since I've done kind of a horror story on here. Suspense for sure, but that was getting dark fast.
Was that horror? I don't even do scary stuff. Was that horror?
It was leading to horror. Yeah.
Oh, damn. Maybe I do like horror then. I'm going to have to retract.
We could have gone into a lot of detail about what happened to Bill's corpse.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Well, listen, yeah, I'm so excited for your release, and I think I love the concept of it. Having 3 books coming out, and 2 of them are written by the main character who's featured in the mystery. I think that's going to be really well received, and I'm very excited. And congratulations on everything.
Oh, thank you so much, Carter, and thanks so much for having me. It was really a pleasure. Really nice to meet you. I hope next year maybe we'll bump into each other at a conference. Hopefully they're all back on.
I will be at BoucherCon and Thriller Fest. So if you're at either of those, yes, that would be great. We'll have a drink.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good luck. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
That was my conversation with Gabrielle St. George. I will tell you, I loved the story that we made up together. I thought, I thought that lent itself very well. As I'm recording this now, it's still just a few days before Halloween, so it worked out quite well. And she said that she's She doesn't really like scary things, but I could tell she had definitely a talent for storytelling along the dark realm. If you want to find out more about Gabrielle, you can go to GabrielleSt.George.com. If you want to find out more about me or subscribe to my newsletter, but please do, and see about my books and any events I might have coming up, you can just go to carterwilson.com. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and more episodes coming out soon. Until then, take care.